In a 1930 letter to his son, Albert Schweitzer wrote, it wasn't Albert Schweitzer, it was Albert Einstein. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep moving, to keep on balance, you have to keep moving. So how must you live if you're riding a tandem? You must move in a cosmically synchronized cadence. And that's what my husband Don and I did for many years on our classic 1965 Schwinn twin. How we came across it is a story unto itself. To ride together, we needed a tandem that had 2 drop bars because he was blind and mobility impaired and would have to be the stoker in the back. And because I, as the captain in front, would have to control the steering, the pedaling, the braking, the shifting, and the overall balance of the bike. And I'm 5 feet tall and not all that strong. We went to a center for the blind where a local cycling club had donated a number of tandems, but soon found that none of them would work. Then from a far corner, I described to Don a scrawny heap of rusty metal hanging from the ceiling with flat tires, a loose chain, and torn seats. But it had character and 2 drop bars. Don said, "That's our bike." He enthusiastically took charge of refurbishing the twin once we got it home, painstakingly removing the rust and arranging for it to be powder-coated a striking cherry red. A friend replaced the tires, lowered the front seat as far as it would go so I could reach the pedals, and we were ready to roll. On the day that it was finished, Don asked me to read us this verse from Shakespeare. "And so we grew together like unto a double cherry, seeming parted but united in partition. 2 lovely berries molded on one stem with 2 seeming bodies, but 1 heart." Then he attached a pair of red cherries carved of wood that he'd had for many years on the tandem's frame. And thus we became Team Double Cherry. Having ridden tandems before losing his sight, it was Don who patiently taught me how to captain a bike. Soon we were calling out, 3, 2, 1, blast off, and sailing down the street. And if I got us lost, it was he who got us back on course, knowing our position by sensing where the sun was in the sky. The tandem freed Don from the feeling that he was primarily perceived as being blind, broken, or flawed. On the twin, he could just be himself. One day, I replaced the tandem's tinny bell with one made of beautifully resonating brass. We rang it when we approached walkers and runners, parents with children, and all sorts of people with dogs. Bring, bring. We rang it as fellow cyclers whizzed by. Bring, bring. And we rang it to respond to everyone who, thinking they were being cleverly original, would invariably call out, "He's not pedaling." We rode to town squares and coffee shops where I would read book after book to him aloud. We rode north, we rode south, we rode east, we rode west. We rode farther and farther and freer and freer. Then we rode closer and closer and nearer and nearer. Don's spirit was soaring, but his body was failing. One fateful day, when he could no longer get on the tandem by himself, a neighbor held it firmly while I placed Don's feet on the pedals and lifted him up. I too mounted on, and with all the effort we could muster, we called out, 3, 2, 1, blast off! I made sure to savor every one of those pedal strokes, every bright bing bing of the bell, every whir of the spokes as the breeze stroked our faces and billowed around our bodies. I knew it was our last ride on our 1965 Schwinn twin. My tandem stoker declined in the following weeks. In his last hours, I brought him a small trove of treasures to take and feel and hold in his hands. A half-read paperback book held together by a rubber band. The small but resounding brass bell that still wanted to sing, "Bring, bring," and the double cherries that had always traveled with us on the Schwinn twins' frame. because we were then and would always be like unto a double cherry, seeming parted, but united in partition. Two lovely berries molded on one stem with two seeming bodies, but one